All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Jack Walker with California NEM 3.0 Sales and Discussions, as well as VP of Construction for Energy Service Partners. We're here today with Helga Canfield and Zach Alvarez from QCells, and they're joining me today because last week I learned some amazing stuff at a webinar I did with these guys, and it was so compelling that I felt like I had to bring them in. Helga's a rock star. She's been in the industry for a minute now. She's got a couple of favorite hobbies, but her single favorite hobby is traveling. Helga, tell us, what's your favorite place to go to when you're traveling?
Well, I'm originally from Europe, so I tend to go back there. I love exploring Spain, Italy, Greece, Portugal. But I would say my most memorable trip was probably last year when I went to Iceland. It was awesome. Such a fascinating country.
People get confused about Iceland, though, right? Because its name is not what it is. Greenland has got more ice than Iceland has
Correct.
more ice, right? Iceland's really a relatively green continent. So
yes, it's actually parts of it you can almost imagine yourself being in Hawaii. It's very lush and green, and it has a lot of resemblance with Hawaii volcanoes and just a little colder, basically.
I bet. It is further north than Sweden and Denmark, right?
Yes,
Yeah, no doubt.
is.
All right, cool.
Yes.
Also joining us is Zach Alvarez. You know, I talked to Zach for a few minutes last week, and immediately I was just impressed with the knowledge base, the understanding, and his ability to sort of deliver critical information in a way that was super palatable. And while Zach is typically a field guy and has that field presence, I definitely wanted to invite him out for this conversation just because of those abilities. Zach is a musician, plays a couple of different instruments, but one of his biggest flares in life is actually fly fishing. Zach, tell me a little bit about that. Do you have a favorite? Is it steelhead in a raging river, or is it largemouth bass along the side of a lake?
For me, it's kind of all the above, though definitely the big steelhead are certainly a siren's call for me. But actually, my favorite would have to be big game fish in the ocean, something that I've just started doing the last few years on the fly. So tarpon, redfish, golden dorado, which I'm doing a trip to Bolivia next year for golden dorado, so I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, definitely I'm leaning towards the bigger fish now these days.
Aren't tarpon the ones that have the crocodile bill?
No, they kind of have I'm not sure how to describe it, but they have a big gulping mouth, kind of like a largemouth bass.
Okay.
But they gulp. So there's actually some famous videos online of a dock in Florida where people put their arms in the water with a piece of bait fish, and a tarpon will swallow their whole arm. The largest,
that's crazy.
125 pounds.
That's crazy. Say that again. What's the biggest one you've ever got?
About 125-pound tarpon. I didn't land it, but I jumped him a couple times down in Florida. It was fun.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So, guys, we put this LinkedIn group together purely because the industry is absolutely struggling in California. There's a whole bunch of political reasons that we could talk about. We're definitely not going to do that here. Like, that is definitely not our environment. But even the largest of companies are blaming things like interest rates and NEM 3.0 as, you know, some of the reasons why they're seeing their stock prices fall. I don't think we're worried about that. I think we're worried about spurring the industry and helping them understand how they can actually achieve better results during these conditions. And so I wanted to bring you guys back. Let's talk for just a minute. And Helga, you can go first if you want. Like, either one of you can jump in. We're going to handle this in really 4 different questions. And the first question is really about sort of QCells. Like, everybody knows QCells, the company, as sort of a panel manufacturer, but you're much more than that. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. 1 in 3 modules today that gets installed in the US is a QCells module. So yes, we're very well known for making a high quality module at a reasonable price point. Beyond that, we are working really hard towards doing all the steps in the US. So we're making a $2.5 billion investment in the US to pretty much do all the steps of a module, all the way from the raw materials to assembling it into a module in the US. I think we're unique in that. As an industry, we, want to have a green image, but if you look at our history as an industry, we actually are quite the polluters, right? We're shipping product from all over the world, and some of the mining isn't done cleanly. So we're here to improve on that. So we're one of the founding members of the Low Carbon Alliance. It's really important to us that we reduce the footprint. And beyond that, we've just looked at what can we do to help our customers and provide additional value other than just delivering a high quality module. And so for us, we're delivering additional products, and we've just started. It will expand. But one of the first programs we launched was a finance program. So we provide consumer financing now, much like you buy a car and you get the loan from the car manufacturer. Same thing on the module side. So we have NFIN now, which is a finance product for the homeowner. So you can finance both with your modules, buy the modules from QCells and also finance through QCells. In addition, we now have storage solutions available. We have to adapt to the market as net metering is kind of under attack. Batteries make more sense. So it makes sense for us to be a partner there. But we didn't stop there. There's a lot of additional value that we're providing to both the homeowner and our installation and sales partners to bring, to differentiate ourselves. So you can expect from us new programs in 2024 on top of that. So pretty exciting.
It is super exciting. Zach, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think what Helga described was excellent in that it kind of introduces us as a complete energy provider. One manufacturer, one partner, better energy. I mean, that's the whole idea behind QCells and our penetration to the U.S. market. We've been here a long time. We're number one in module market share for commercial and residential modules. And now the next step is to take that and expand those solutions beyond just modules. And we've begun that a number of years ago with our first energy storage solution. Our generation 2 is now out and available. You've seen it yourself. You've liked it. You loved it. You're excited about it. We are as well.
Damn.
There's a lot of moving parts. And certainly, Helga touched on our local manufacturing base here in the U.S., which is nearly 3 gigawatts currently. And that's going to expand to more than double that in 2024. So it's an exciting time, not only for the U.S.
really
market,
is.
but for particular. We're just
you guys are in the right.
Position.
You guys are in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and I think it's important. There's a lot of. I've been in the industry for a long time, and a lot of brands have come and gone, and I think a lot of homeowners don't always fully understand, how important that is. I mean, anything you buy, it's a 2-year, a 5-year warranty, and solar is really unique in that we provide a 25-year long warranty. That's a long time, and
it is.
Better go with a module and a product that's, the warranty is held by a reputable brand that's bankable and is going to be around. Because
all right, hang on to that for a sec. Helga, hang on to that for a sec, because we're going to use some terms that people don't understand, and I don't want to do that just yet.
Okay. Okay.
When you tell somebody that we're bankable, they go, huh? Like, I don't really know what that means, right? So I want to reel this one back in real quick. So here's what I heard, and I want to make sure all of the folks selling in California and those folks that are working with ESP or those folks that are wanting to learn how to better sell under California NEM 3.0 conditions. Here's what I heard. QCells is not just a panel manufacturer. We are actually in the industry as a panel manufacturer. We now offer inverters and batteries for that product. We're going to bring the financing, if we haven't already done so, with that. So literally you'll have a one-stop shop. And then there's other stuff down the road. Maybe there's automation, maybe there's home energy control, maybe there's consumption monitoring, who knows? There's more stuff that could possibly happen down the road. But it feels like QCells is really jumping in and saying, hey, look at us as a total solution. Unlike other manufacturers where you take a panel and you match it up with an inverter or an optimizer and then a different inverter. And before you know it, by the time you're making your first bit of AC, you've got 3 different components made by 3 different companies, right? Much better to have that communication singled down into like sort of one throat to choke, so to speak, is the best way to sort of describe it, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, cool. Hey, some of the things that I saw that I was super impressed with last week when we talked was really the crispness and the cleanness in which QCells is coming to ESS, which again, that's what the industry calls it. If you were to ask me, I just simply call it a battery, right? Because energy storage systems, why do I have to have 3 words, man? It's a battery. It just stores power. That's all it does. We don't have to overcomplicate this thing. Hey, I'm going to share my screen real quick because I want the folks to see what you showed us. And let me know when you guys can share when you guys can see my screen.
I can see it.
Yep.
All right, cool. Here's the deal, guys. When you presented this slide to us yesterday and you talked about these individual modules and how they all stack on top of each other, and then the inverter goes on top of it, in my mind, what I pictured was Legos. And if everybody can remember Legos, they literally stacked and interlocked with each other. And so Legos was a great toy. By no means do I want to compare this to a toy, but I definitely want to show and highlight the crispness and cleanness in which these batteries stack, and how all the electrical connections from battery to battery are actually made in that stack. And then the inverter stacks on top of it. Like, I think this is renowned in the industry. Zach, tell us a little bit about how this thing comes together, what each module size is, and give us some capacities, would you?
Absolutely. So what you're looking at the image here is a 7.6 kilowatt inverter with a 21 kilowatt hour energy storage battery system. Batteries, and for the common nomenclature, right? So you're exactly right. Everything stacks together like Legos, and it's all self-terminating. So there's no conduit or wiring for the installer to actually cut, bend, or terminate. It's all done for you as you stack each component. So starting from the bottom there, each battery module is 5 kilowatt hours, and there's 4 of them. So you've got 20 kilowatt hours total. They self-stack, self-terminate. After the 4th battery, you have our battery management system, which is just the brains of the unit. That's right there. And then above that, also stacked on top of it, is the inverter itself. So the whole idea behind this solution was to offer a very easy to install and commission product. Check, both boxes. And then secondly was to have something that the homeowner wants to have on their house, something that's sleek and aesthetic, has a good visual view to it, and something that wasn't too big. You know, aside from the Lego-like stackability that you see here, the other thing that should jump out at most people is the depth. It's just under 6 inches deep off the wall. Most other solutions are 10 to 15 inches deep, and it's just a massive improvement in space utilization. So overall, when it comes to aesthetics and then ease of install and system design, you know, every box is checked there, and it really is a solution that we're pretty proud of.
That's awesome. Honestly, I can't tell you how beautiful this thing looks. Now, we're going obviously from the inverter here to a form of backup interface. I'm assuming this houses all the controls for if we're going to either self-consume or backup interface, depending on what the homeowner's sort of profile selections are. And then from here, it's going to go out to an AC disconnect and then into the main panel. So quite literally, everything in this particular system, with the exception of the AC disconnect, is inside of the garage, and it's well protected.
Exactly. You're right. That backup interface, as we refer to it as a hub, that is the backup interface that houses the auto transformer switch, all the interconnections for the AC, as well as the communications. All
right, cool. So Helga, we're going to turn to NEM 3.0 for just a second here, because I've done a podcast now, I don't know, with 4 or 5 different battery manufacturers, and we've talked about lots of things, but we had a segment called 5 burning questions, and 5 electrifying questions. We decided not to call it 5 burning questions because we thought that might be a bad prelude for sort of talking about storage, but we ended up modifying it. Okay, so Helga, I really want to talk about NEM 3.0 and how this battery and this solar solution works, and how do we keep it simple for sales, right? Because lots of people get caught up into things like buyback rate and self-consumption and when do I sell and how do I sell. At the end of the day, QCells makes it easy, right? Because this is ultimately controllable through a homeowner interface, like an app, right? It's an app on their phone.
Correct. Yes. The homeowner can actually set what mode they would prefer. I think what makes our product appealing is that we can kind of address a bunch of different home situations. So if price is absolutely key and we want to save a lot of labor in the system, I would recommend they go with the grids, what we call the grid services option. So you're not going to provide any backup. You'd have to explain it to the homeowner. You're getting a system. The system that I'm selling to you gives you the best return on your investment. And there will be a battery, but in this situation, the battery will not provide any backup. if you want to do backup, we can do that, but it costs X amount more, and it's quite significant, right? So if a homeowner wants partial or whole home backup, you can use that with our product. You just use the hub. But if you can sense that, it really needs to be as economically and most cost affordable, then don't use the hub and use it just as this is the best way to get your return on your investment achieved. And then, as I shared a little bit earlier, there are some add-on programs that we will be able to offer you that will even make that return a little bit better. It's well known, I think, that in September, there are some really attractive times to sell. And when a homeowner signs up with the virtual power plant, we will control their system during the month of September to make 100% sure that they are selling back during those critical hours, because that is like an $800 swing a year. And we need to make sure that they are doing the right thing at that time.
Yep, let's pause right there, right? Because this is one of the places that I felt like we needed to be a little cautious. So homeowners will have control over their battery, right? And there's really 3 modes that a homeowner can operate in. Not necessarily 3 modes in your app, but 3 basic modes in which they'll operate under, so to speak. The first one is self-consumption, which is where, hey, they're going to use all the power that they create, and they'll maybe set up their battery to sort of discharge to their main panel when they're using power during, extremely expensive hours, so that they're not buying power from the grid at, say, 83 or 85 cents a kilowatt. They're actually buying it from themselves that they put into the battery at, I don't know, 8 or 11 cents a kilowatt hour, depending on what sort of financing they got into. That's one mode and one mode only, right? There's still a couple of other modes that this thing can operate in. And as you mentioned, they are a little bit more expensive because it requires more electrical work. We're still going to use that backup interface, but now we're going to control either a few loads in the home called critical loads or essential loads. I really like the word essential loads. This other mode of essential loads backup is really important, right? Because there are times when people do lose power. Now, it might not happen very often, but when it does happen, it's super irritating because I can't open my garage to get my car out. I'm worried about opening my refrigerator and losing the coolness that's in there, or even my food going bad in a freezer. I can't recharge my phone. I can't understand, or I can't get television or communications. Like I'm left not in the know. Right. So it becomes important now to have this sort of backup load situation where a homeowner can watch TV to get caught up on the news and events, what's happening around them. They can charge their phone so that they can have communication with their friends and families. They can get their cars in and out of the garage. Like, these are absolutely essential things. So that's the second mode. And I think that one's super important as well. And then lastly, whole home backup is a little bit more complicated, but not as complicated as a lot of people think. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely more electrical work involved than, say, an essential loads panel, but it's absolutely the same kind of work as an essential load panel. There's just more of it. And sometimes, depending on how the home electrical configuration is set up, like, so for instance, if a homeowner has a separate meter from their main, it's a lot easier to actually do whole home backup than partial home backup. Now, we'll keep that little secret right here because in California, there's not a whole lot of separate meters from main panels. Most everybody has a meter main combination, at which point we have to do another panel if we're going to do whole home backup. The reason all of these things are important, right, is because you're able to create this energy on your roof, just like you're able to earn money when you go to work every single day. Where the battery becomes super important is I can take the excess energy that I'm making and I can store it into the battery, just like I can take my paycheck from work and I can stick it in the bank. And then later, when I don't have any cash in my pocket, or when I don't have any power that I'm making from the solar panels, I can actually take it out of the battery and use it in my home. And I can do that virtually anytime I want, whether the sun's up or down. And so these sort of configurations in my mind act a lot like an ATM card. When I'm out of cash, I can go to the bank. And so long as I have money in the bank, I can take it out. So long as the homeowners have power from the solar system in their battery, they can take it out whenever they need it as well. And this is really where savings comes from. I do want to reinforce how important August September are for homeowners when utilities are buying back at the 50, 60, 70, $1, $2 range, right? I think one of them even has a $2 and almost 96-cent price per kilowatt hour, giving a certain window.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yet-
it's critical that you don't consume it and during that period, but sell it back, right? That's key.
Yeah. And again, programming, not that the sales rep is going to do, or not that the homeowner is going to do, that programming exists inside the system. All they have to do is select a mode in which to operate, right?
Correct.
Zach, you want to touch on it a little bit or not at all?
No, I mean, I think we summed it all up pretty well, but I think the overreaching kind of factor or point that's reaching out to me and throughout this discussion is that the QCells QHome core offers you the flexibility to do it all. So any of the partial or home backup, the different work modes that you spoke about, all of that's built into the system and it's available to use. So it makes it really easy for a homeowner, depending on if they have solar existing or not, or if they have nothing on the home, or if they have an existing Enphase system or SolarEdge system, whatever it is, they can pair with our QHome core and we can service their needs with the battery specifically. So it's
awesome.
It makes it universal.
That's so awesome. Hey, Danny, I know you joined in a little bit late into this discussion, but I love giving you your 2 cents. You want to take them?
I'll use one of the cents right now, just basically on what Zach had touched on. I love hearing that you play well with others, because I think there's way too many examples in the solar industry of companies who are like, nope, our ecosystem is the best and it only works with this technology that we've developed. So you have to, like, that doesn't make our job easier as an installer. We try and stay manufacturer agnostic, right? Like, if it's a good option and we can be good at installing it, absolutely, let's offer it. We don't want to corral ourselves into like, nah, sorry, you only get this one brand, that's it. Because why not diversify with the huge diversification that we have in this industry and find, awesome options like yours?
I think diversification is super important. You never want to be beholden to one manufacturer. Though when you are working and installing with a particular manufacturer, you do want to know that you're going to be supported by them, as broadly as you can. And that's really where our complete energy solution and one brand, one warranty aspect comes into play, is that if you're using our modules and our inverters, the only person that you're contacting is QCells. But in terms of an overall vendor kind of discussion, you're absolutely right. I think it's important to diversify. Have 3 vendors that you use that you can, make sure that you can keep your operations going whenever, supply chain issues come up, as they have over the last few years with COVID and things like that. You never want to be beholden to one person, right? Yeah. So it's always super important. But when it comes to service and support, that's definitely an important thing to kind of consider.
I feel like you're setting me up, Zach, because I told you I had 4 questions prepared for you, right? And this thing would end up taking, 20, 25 minutes. And when I said that, like, I saw the look come over your guys' face. You're like, 4 questions, 25 minutes. What the heck? Well, because every one of them becomes a little bit of a discussion, right? And my very last question was the number one thing we talked about leading up to the end of NEM 2.0, right? We said as a company, now I'm talking about, hey, I'm an ESP employee, I'm vice president of construction, and we're having these meetings to talk about what are we going to do to make sure that if this sales pace that we're on continues into NEM 3.0, what are we going to do to make sure that supply chain can handle what's going on? Now then, everybody knows that there was this giant sort of hockey stick curve leading up to the end of NEM 3.0 because everybody wanted to be grandfathered in. All right, that's cool. Now then, you've got all the people who didn't get grandfathered in. And now they're standing around saying, hey, wait, what about me? Yeah, I missed the boat on NEM 2.0, but now you guys are talking about batteries and storing power and selling power back. And we've never had this opportunity before. I want to be first. I want to be next. And sales is a little bit sort of hampered by that, right? So by us making it super easy for them, we're hoping that it's going to sort of open up the gates for them to go out and just be more comfortable selling product. Now, here's where it sort of gets a little bit tricky. The more products you have does not make it easier to do this, right? Because everybody's product spec and spec level and variation, right, can make this thing super difficult to remember who does what. So The one thing that I always try to sort of preach to my friends who are still out selling is the fundamentals have not changed. You still have DC power being generated in the panel. You still have AC power coming down through some form of an inverter and going to a disconnect and then going to your main panel. Here's the difference. A battery can fit in either an AC side or a DC side of this system. It really can. And it doesn't necessarily matter whose battery it is. We just have to connect it to the right side of either AC or the DC side. Okay, cool. When it's all said and done, we have to come back to, I went and sold this thing. When are you guys going to get it installed? Now, we're going to do everything in our power to make everything happen in sort of 1, 2, and 3 day increments. Your site surveys, your contract is going to be approved in 1 or 2 days. Your site survey is going to get done in 1, 2, or 3 days. Your design is going to get done in 1, 2, or 3 days. We really try to streamline this whole process. Your design is going to get reviewed and submitted within 1 day. Then we have to wait because we're no longer in control, right? The jurisdiction has to approve this thing. But this is where sort of key relationships come into place. When that permit gets submitted, that's when we start calling on you and we say, hey man, we need to have these things available. We use distribution. We use distribution to the max. How can we go about ensuring, and what can we do for you guys to ensure that you'll have the products we need when we need them?
I'll take that one. I think the most important thing is just visibility. We forecast pretty far out as a manufacturer, as you can expect. So if there is an unexpected surge, alert us soon, as soon as you know, and we will adjust and increase our numbers. But I am personally not worried. We're very committed to investment, as we've shown on the module side, and we will do the same on the storage side if this thing blows up. I do expect, California tends to be kind of a leader. Potentially we could call Hawaii #1 and California #2, and the rest of the utilities in the US are closely monitoring what just happened in California. And I think, the NEM 3 situation, I think, is going to get duplicated in other states. So I think there will be massive demand for batteries in the future. We're just at the very, very beginning of it. And we'll be ready to support that.
Helga, I think this is so smart, right? A homeowner in California under NEM 3.0, when they go solar, they truly are in control of their long-term power, right? I have this philosophy, and you guys heard me touch on it before we started the recording, but I have this philosophy that when we get to a single stack that's 40 kilowatts or bigger, 40 kilowatt hours or bigger into a battery, I really do think people are going to charge their battery from their solar when they're not home, they're out working. They're going to come home and they're going to basically live off their battery. And for the homeowners that can do this, and the installers who can install this, and the manufacturers who can support this, they are the ones that are going to, in my opinion, succeed first. And the reason is because at the end of the day, they will be in complete control and they won't even need the utility meter. Not everybody feels the same way I do. There's a big push in California for electric vehicles. And by 2035 or something like that, there's supposed to be like 85% of the vehicles on the road are supposed to be electric vehicles, which is all well and good. But there's still some technology that's going to have to be developed, right? Because not everybody can actually afford to pay their electric bill if they continue to live their life the way they do and have an electric vehicle or two. Right? Because now your utility bill is going up. It takes a tremendous amount of power to actually charge one of these things. But the good news is when you have a fully charged car and that battery is literally just sitting in your garage, it should be able to be connected to go the other way and feed your home. Right? So there's lots of different ways that we can get to these 40 kilowatt hours. I just think that it's going to be critical that we actually get there as an industry one day. And I'll leave you with this, and I'll give everybody their sort of closing sentences or closing segments. I think the industry is in for a huge turn of events as it relates to PV systems combined with battery storage and the control that the homeowner will have, whether it's being able to load mitigate from their phone or whether to be able to VPP and sell power back to the grid whenever they choose. Like, I think there's lots of different reasons to be in control of whatever it is they purchased. And we're definitely on our way to getting there. We're not 100% there yet, but we're really close. And when we get there, I think the industry is in for another massive boom because lots of people will want to have that control. Helga, you want to share some closing sentences with us?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you said as far we're just at the beginning of this. You know, again, as a homeowner, I think it just makes sense to protect yourself against future utility rate increases. I mean, it's just a given. They're going to keep going up. I think the utilities will make it more and more difficult for us, but as an industry, we're always innovators and we always find a way to punch back and you know, give that path of independence to a homeowner, honestly, so they can control their own usage and how they want to use the power that they generate in the house. And the QCells, we're really working hard to provide both the homeowner and the installers and sales orgs with additional value from QCells and all the products that you'll see coming down the pike from us.
Zach, how do you see it shaking out, man?
Man, I consider myself a realist more than anything else, and from what I see is this industry, energy storage and batteries in particular, is in it's in infancy, essentially, right? It's at just the beginning, and 5 years from now, I think the whole architecture of everything that we're doing now is going to look very different. But what's key to me is that batteries are the future, and system and software management and load management is the future. And all of those things are being developed right now, and they're being perfected and they're being improved on. But you know, it is an ever evolving industry. So it's just super exciting to be a part of it, and I'm excited for the future to see how we're able to leverage all those different solutions as a complete energy provider and really allow homeowners to be independent of those different utilities and really, as you said, take control of their systems.
Does it feel like a little bit that not having one clear-cut leader sort of inhibits us from sort of being able to move faster? And what I mean by that, right? If you think about, have you ever heard of the term preeminent domain? So preeminent domain is where your brand sort of becomes the actual name of the product, right? Like Xerox, go make me a Xerox copy of this. Kleenex is just a brand. It's a manufacturer, but everybody knows they make the facial tissue, right? They call it a Kleenex. Give me a Kleenex, right? One of the things that I think sort of hampers us as an industry is that we don't have a sort of preeminent domain. We've got a bunch of big guys, and if we could get them all to sort of align and say, hey, we're all going to follow Google communication, or we're all going to follow 5G. And like, I think that would provide us a faster sort of path to get to a place where home automation can happen easier. Total home control could happen easier. Storage management, like all of that stuff would theoretically happen earlier if everybody was on a single sort of unified platform. But what makes capitalism so great, right, is that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and everybody has sort of this idea of which way they want to do it. Danny, I never, ever want to forget you. Please give us a couple of closing sentences about what you've seen from QCell and how awesome this stuff really is.
Well, first off, I have 2 cats. I'd prefer that you skin neither of them. So let's roll that back. But no, I completely agree with you. I think that I would take the opposite tack and again go back to that diversity angle. I think that yes, it would be nice to have kind of a unified, like, agreed upon path forward between all of the battery manufacturers, because there's definitely we need to be a united front against utilities that are actively trying to crush the industry and actively continuing to try to take advantage of homeowners and charge them ridiculous amounts just to line their own pockets. I mean, I have not made it a secret about how I feel about the big utilities. There are some utilities who are trying a different tack and trying to kind of lean into it. Actually, I mean, here in Utah, Rocky Mountain Power has the incentive program to basically they'll pay you to borrow a chunk of your battery when they need it, and be kind of turn multiple households into kind of that utility hive mind where they can say, oh yeah, hey, we have a spike in demand, let's just tap into our reserves here that's spread out across the across the state, as it kind of should be. I mean, talking about electric vehicles, Jack, I mean, like if we have the ability to create mobile demand response kind of stuff with, self-driving electric batteries, essentially, like there's crazy stuff we can do. But definitely the way forward, I think, is to not have as much like infighting and posturing between, not obviously not talking about present company here, but those manufacturers who are saying like, yeah, we're the best, and so therefore we're the only option you should go with, and we don't play well with others. We do need everybody in this. We need the diversity of everybody's great ideas that are going to come together so that we can really, just again, offer homeowners the true option that we always have said as solar salespeople, like, hey, this is the choice you have. You can either continue to pay a rent check or you can own your power. Well, that hasn't really been totally true, honestly, until we get to the battery system. So that I think that, we're on the right track. I can't wait to see what happens in the next, year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Where are we going to be by there's going to be amazing stuff coming down the road. I'm sure of it.
You know what? That, my friend, is Danny O'Malley. I'm Jack Walker. We're here with the folks from QCell. We're definitely doing this for the folks of California NEM 3.0 sales and discussions. We're definitely doing this for the sales teams, the leaders, and all of the people at ESP. We really want to make this thing go. I hope you found the information here today helpful and got a better understanding of QCells. Helga and Zach, thank you so much for joining us. It truly was a really good time, and I look forward to doing it again real soon.
Thanks for the invite. Anytime.